I interviewed her, Dan, when I was at NBC about creating IT cosmetics. And she did have the high, I can't even do it, my voice is too low, but she had the high squeaky voice a little, but she's really leaning in now in her little podcast with Megyn. And she's gone next octave up. And the two of them have the weirdest dynamic. And so in this podcast, Megyn does her perfectly curated life thing, but she's allegedly wearing no makeup. Meanwhile, she's got like the perfect blowout, you know, and like she's completely camera ready, except she didn't put eye makeup on. And she also is pretending that she's crying. And we did a zero in, like we zoomed in just to see there isn't a tear in sight. Dan, look at this. I invite the viewers to take a close-up look at this. Where's the tear? There's nothing there. Look, it's an actor's trick.
Meghan Markle's emotional theater just got a full-blown spotlight, minus the actual emotion. Greg Gutfeld dove in with his usual razor-edged wit, slicing through the drama like it was his job, which, let's face it, it kind of is. Megyn Kelly, she didn't miss a beat, tossing reality checks like they were confetti at a coronation. The target? Megyn's latest podcast performance, one that tried to sell tears but couldn't even deliver moisture. Was it a case of overacting, a strategic sob story, or just Megyn being Megyn? Whatever it was, the combination of Greg's sarcasm and Megyn's laser-focused takedown turned it into comedy gold. It's the kind of roast that doesn't need flames, just facts, smirks, and the occasional fake sniffle.
I resent you. I resent England for sending your second-hand royalty to us, because now we got to deal with this. Yes, I just love the fact that they thought that they were going to be royalty here in America. So there was an assumption that and they were almost there. I mean, they were going to get gigs everywhere. There were Netflix, Hulu, Apple TV. Everybody was just going to give them millions and millions, and then they had to sit in a room with them and realize, my God, they're vacuous. He's a nice guy, apparently, but I mean, just thoroughly vacuous. She leads him around on a rope, and and it's like, that's it. That is the kind of sitcom I want to see.
I'll tell you the other thing.
A reality show.
It's happened again. Meghan Markle has graced us with another heartfelt, tearless display of emotion. You know the type. The voice cracks, the pacing slows, the words carry the weight of a Shakespearean monologue. But the eyes? Dry as a desert in July. It's one of those high society sob sessions where the pain is allegedly unbearable, yet not a single tear dares to show up on cue. The emotion is dialed up to 11, but her tear ducts clearly didn't get the memo.
She pulled out all the stops. Here is the intro of the episode.
Megyn, Duchess of Sussex, in her first ever podcast interview. It's happening!
It's not about the grandeur of a gesture. It's about I see you. I'm nurturing you and I see you so deeply, and I love being able to see your growth. Of all things, it's making me emotional.
I have full body chills right now.
For them to be able to look back and go, oh my gosh, she has loved us so much.
Why don't you like her?
Let me count the ways. There's nothing I like about her. She is a malignant narcissist who cannot get enough of herself while she simultaneously plays the victim. My castle's too small. Yeah. The queen is mean to me. They won't let me call myself Her Royal Highness anymore, but I'm going to put it all over my stationery and on the gifts that I give to my friends, while she never stops whining. And at the same time, and I'm getting all worked up, I'm a founder. I'm over it. She's not important. She married for money. It's very clear. She bagged the elephant. She was thrilled she became a, quote, princess.
And just like clockwork, the Duchess of Drama dropped another episode of her signature soul-bearing podcast, the kind where every syllable is dipped in raw vulnerability and conveniently curated for maximum brand alignment. She sighed with meaning, blinked with intent, and gave us the emotional equivalent of a tear without evidence. It was less crying and more strategic moistening, and naturally, the internet exploded faster than Harry scrambling to recall his current job title.
Back with another attempt at relevance, this time her upcoming Netflix series with Love, Megyn. Roll it, Agnes. Of course it's the first time, because you never do it. You can actually tell how phony someone is when they tell you how authentic they are. Obviously, this will crash and burn like all of our other poorly planned pet projects, because despite her pseudo-British fame, people over here roundly reject this kind of phony force-fed crap.
By now, the world has learned to brace itself for Meghan's weekly dose of mic'd-up melancholy. Because let's be honest, what's a podcast episode without a splash of performance-grade vulnerability? But this time, the spectacle wasn't just presented, it was curated like an art piece. Tearless sorrow on a silver platter, garnished with self-importance and served by a mindfulness guru somewhere in Montecito. The sadness was staged for digestion, and Meghan assumed we'd all swallow it whole. Only problem? Some folks gagged.
He embarrassed his family for fun. Now his tell-all's #1. It's true. Prince Harry's book has now become the fastest-selling non-fiction book in the history of the UK, selling 400,000 copies on Tuesday. It's the only book to ever sell more copies on its first day than Harry Potter, which also was a work of fiction. Anyway, the book also reveals a whole bunch of weird crap. A text message fight between Meghan and Kate. How does a husband get that? And why does he care? Also, how Prince Charles used to do headstands in his underwear every day to alleviate injuries from polo. Not polio. Polo.
Then came Greg Gutfeld, never one to pass up a good target wrapped in velvet self-pity. For Greg, late night isn't just about jokes, it's about precision strikes, sarcasm warfare, and roasting with a grin. So when Meghan's tearless tale hit the airwaves, he didn't just raise an eyebrow, he raised the alarm. Armed with nothing but his trademark wit and a tolerance for melodrama thinner than Meghan's acting range, he tore into the performance like it interrupted his bourbon break. He called out the emotion with all the subtlety of a foghorn in a library, comparing it to an Instagram influencer's vacation reel. Carefully staged, wildly exaggerated, and about as authentic as a spray tan in a rainstorm. Greg didn't analyze, he annihilated. To him, it was theater without talent. A one-woman show where the tears were on strike, but the monologue never ended. And as only Greg could do, he took the idea of Meghan being silenced and twisted it into the punchline it begged to be. Silenced? With a global platform, a podcast, a Netflix deal, and a press team that probably has its own zip code, please. According to Greg, if that's what being silenced looks like, then the rest of us must be invisible.
She gave an interview to People magazine. She says she loves building this safe haven and show with her daughter. And she says, being able to have my own little girl, as I've spent so much of my life championing the rights of girls and women, knowing this is something that I can create in front of my daughter and teach her what it's like to be a working mom. This is not what it's like to be a working mom. What it's like to be a working mom is to come downstairs with no makeup on, you're barely out of your pajamas, and you're like, did you eat? Let's go. You're late. Get your backpack. Come on. If you do this again, I'm not bringing it to you at school. Let's go. Right. Grab anything. Doesn't matter what the sugar content is. This is such a farce.
But Greg didn't stop at tossing barbs about Meghan's invisible tears. No, he upgraded the whole charade into a satirical syllabus. He joked that her podcast could double as a master class in emotional gymnastics, offering lessons like how to cry without evidence, weaponizing whispers for sympathy, and silence, sponsored by Spotify. It was less commentary, more roast session, served hot, sarcastic, and thoroughly medium rare. He went after the performance with the kind of gusto usually reserved for bad theater reviews and a high-priced coffee. And perhaps most scathing of all was his take on the calculated use of emotion as a PR force field. As Greg saw it, you can't criticize someone for their sob story if the sobbing never actually shows up. It's like trying to fact-check a mime. You're watching the gestures, hearing the emotion in the voice, but the facial reality is buffering. While Greg volleyed sarcasm like cream pies in a courtroom, across the media trenches came a colder, sharper critique, Megyn Kelly. If Greg is the class clown with a scalpel, Megyn is the litigator with receipts. Where Greg mocks, Megyn dissects. Her tone wasn't playful, it was precise, clinical, even surgical. She didn't bother asking if the tears were fake. She focused on why they were staged and how the public was being played. Megyn wasn't laughing. She was calculating. And Meghan Markle, queen of curated vulnerability, was her latest case study in emotional brand marketing.
Meghan and Harry, who are planning to come and hijack the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And I know you find them a constant source of hilarity as well. They don't ever intend to make us laugh. They just make us laugh through their absurdity.
I love that her woke cartoon on Netflix got canceled. There's a great story behind this. The cartoon is called Pearl. It's about a coming of age, right? Which is a code word for nauseating, self-involved tripe. So what happened is, this is my favorite part. So it's like the young girl's rise in social justice, and you know who Meghan's cartoon is inspired by? Meghan. She made it's inspired by her, which is amazing. But that tells you everything. That in the woke world, it is not actually about helping people. It's a disguise. It's a virtue signal that helps you, that makes you look good.
Right.
And there's perfect evidence of this because they never help anybody but themselves.
And Meghan's verdict? Emotional manipulation, plain and simple. She didn't frame Meghan's tearless cries as vulnerability. She called them a tactic, a PR sleight of hand disguised as a breakdown. This wasn't about sharing pain, Meghan argued. It was about seizing control of the conversation. She picked apart the performance like a lawyer in closing arguments, measured, deliberate, and devastatingly specific. Meghan wasn't sighing with disbelief, she was practically drawing diagrams. Her tone said, "Let's examine the strategy, not let's empathize." She noted how these emotional episodes from Meghan always seem to appear with uncanny timing, when headlines sour, when public trust dips, when scrutiny gets a little too sharp. That's when the Duchess drops another raw memory or vaguely tragic anecdote, polished and primed for sympathy. But there's never a mess, never a moment where Meghan looks truly undone. It's all well-lit, studio soundtrack sorrow, sadness made for streaming. What Meghan saw wasn't authenticity, it was chaos by design. And that raised an even bigger issue, credibility. Why do the details in Meghan's stories subtly shift from one interview to another? Why are the biggest claims always followed by a conspicuous lack of evidence? Meghan laid it out. You can forgive a fake cry, but when the entire narrative wobbles under basic scrutiny, the problem's not just performative sadness, it's a performative truth.
She is the most insecure person I have seen in the public eye in a long time. That is why everything had to be perfectly curated. Who the hell picks fucking berries in a white cashmere blouse and white pants? Literally no one on earth does that. And like this garden, which is like the most over the top. Like we're all supposed to go, Maureen, to make our breakfast in the morning out to our gardens and pick our berries, our raspberries, our strawberries, our blueberries, our snozberries, and cut our mint, and then cut our flowers that are edible. But don't worry, she's a woman of the people. You can grow those just on your windowsill at home in New York, your edible flowers.
And don't forget your local beekeeper.
Yeah.
Your local beekeeper.
And while Gutfeld had the audience laughing with his cutting jabs, it was Megyn Kelly's calm dissection that made the room go still. This wasn't just about fake tears. It was about the long game. About the consequences of using emotional vulnerability like a marketing tool. Because when you signal distress too often, with nothing behind the signal, even genuine cries start to sound like noise. Eventually, people stop looking for the wolf. Meghan's mistake wasn't just forgetting to look like she was crying. It was performing heartbreak with the polish of a studio session, pausing for emphasis, speaking through a filtered lens of carefully curated humanity, while sitting under lights that probably had a color temperature setting. It's not that real emotion can't exist in a podcast. Of course it can. But when the whole production screams branding, it's fair for the audience to start questioning the product. And the internet noticed. It didn't exactly crown her with applause. Instead, it responded with memes, sarcasm, and side eyes. Meghan wasn't lauded for her courage. She was questioned for her consistency. Because at the end of the day, when your image is so polished that even your breakdowns come with a PR strategy, you've traded sympathy for skepticism.
That his heart is even more beautiful.
I love that your eyes are sparkling right now.
Oh.
Oh my God. Dan, I threw up in my mouth.
Yes. Yes.
Dan, when you do interviews on your show, do you do the Jamie Kern-Lima reactions? Yes. Oh my God, there's something wrong with her. Who communicates like that? She's the only thing saving Meghan Markle, because between the two, she's even weirder. But Meghan Markle, this is a tell. Okay, this is a tell. It's the same way on Valentine's Day. You see people post like, my rock, my life partner, the person who saved me. Guaranteed that guy is cheating on her, and she knows.
People pored over the podcast clip like it was forensic evidence, slowing it down, replaying frames, trying to catch a single genuine tear. Was that a glimmer of moisture? Nope, just the studio lights. A sniffle? Nah, that was probably the mic picking up background noise. What should have been a heartfelt confession turned into a national game of spot the emotion. Because when your brand is built on vulnerability, even a missed blink can break the spell. Meghan's whole presence hinges on a formula: carefully measured doses of fragility, victimhood, and soft-focus storytelling. It's not just what she says, it's the performance of it. You're supposed to feel something, but only when it's most strategically beneficial. It's all curated sadness with a side of sponsored content. Empathy on demand, but only if the timing fits the press cycle. Meanwhile, you can bet Greg Gutfeld is somewhere laughing hysterically, probably bookmarking stills of the podcast to use as props in his next monologue. Megyn Kelly, on the other hand, is likely filing this latest saga in her well-organized archive of Markle misfires, ready to bring it up the next time someone calls it authentic. The strange part? These two come from opposite ends of the commentary universe. Greg in a blazer of satire, Megyn in the armor of cross-examination. And yet they landed on the same conclusion. Something didn't add up. When two minds that rarely align both catch a whiff of the same phony perfume, it's probably not the lighting playing tricks. It's just Meghan's latest emotion, handcrafted, brand-approved, and tear-free.
And then there was that time that Harry suffered frostbite on his penis from a trip to the North Pole. You sure he didn't get that from Meghan? It's contagious, frostbite. I think. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. The best part, Harry's book is titled Spare, which comes from Harry's claim that he was bred only to offer spare organs to Prince William. I know. Although they're both out of luck generating hair plugs.
Gutfeld caught on right away, like watching a rerun of the same tired soap opera where the lead just changes costumes and rehashes the trauma under different lighting. Meghan, the meticulous analyst, broke down the pattern. Identical storylines repackaged across platforms with just enough variation in the Tearless delivery to hit different target audiences. On Spotify, she's the weeping Duchess discovering her voice. On Netflix, the silenced revolutionary again finding her voice. And at elite summits, surprise, still on that same quest to find her voice. At this point, that voice must be lost somewhere in Narnia. But here's the kicker. Greg and Megyn, two commentators who rarely see eye to eye on anything besides the fact that breathing is essential, both sniffed out something off in this emotional rerun. It's emotional Groundhog Day featuring Meghan Markle and a revolving door of recycled stories. Each new episode comes with a slightly revised script. Villains adjusted, scenes swapped, Harry's expressions changed. But that golden core remains untouched. Meghan, as the perpetually misunderstood heroine, bathed in perfect lighting and somehow immune to actual tears. And that's the Meghan Markle show in a nutshell, the Duchess of emotional complexity. Criticize her and you're branded cruel. Question her and you're labeled sexist. Laugh at her? Well, congratulations, you're now part of the problem. Even when she's crying without tears in a multi-million-dollar recording studio, the performance never misses a beat.
She married Harry. The press was wonderful for her. The British people loved Harry, and they were delighted to see him so happy and in love, and she was playing the role of demure, supportive partner to a T. I mean, very well. It wasn't until she started to make her positions clear and continuously play the victim from the palace that people started to get a feel of who she really was, and then the public opinion turned, and so did the press.
So maybe the real story isn't just that Meghan faked the tears, it's that she's unintentionally become a performance artist, completely unaware the show's final act already played out. The harder she tries to seem authentic, the more artificial she comes across. And no amount of podcast production flair can mask the fact that when both Greg Gutfeld uses humor and Megyn Kelly applies cold logic to call her out, it might be time to ask if the Emperor's new podcast has any emotional substance left at all. Just when you think the drama's hit its limit, Megyn drops yet another soul-bearing episode on a platform made for maximum reach. Privacy? Apparently that's best preserved by broadcasting it worldwide on Spotify, complete with dramatic sound design, orchestral breaks, and a neatly packaged 3-act structure. Nothing says keep your distance quite like carefully timed revelations delivered in crystal-clear 4K audio. She cries without tears, speaks in endless, meaningful pauses, and drifts between moments of strength and vulnerability, like a royal specter stuck in a wellness retreat. One moment she's the symbol of resilience, the next a warning about the dangers of too much exposure. It's emotional ping-pong, and the audience is left seriously dizzy.
You couldn't avoid the promo for this summer if you turned on your television, trying to get her back into people's minds so she can relaunch her career, maybe improve her likability factor. Well, it's not working. A new poll conducted by Newsweek shows that her popularity is down 8 points from June. She's underwater in her net approval rating. 33% of people reported their dislike for her. 31% said she was okay to them. I guess the rest don't have an opinion, but she's going in the wrong direction. Harry's liked by a few more, but they're still both disliked. And so you tell me whether it is possible at this point to rehabilitate Meghan Markle.
Gutfeld, the master of chaotic critique, turned Meghan's podcast into an all-you-can-eat sarcasm buffet, while Kelly sliced through the Duchess's carefully crafted narrative like a debt collector on a mission. Yet somehow, Meghan's blank, tearless sob still managed to steal the spotlight, defying both logic and physics. This isn't just performance art, it's performance psychology with a full PR crew backstage. The Meghan paradox is very much alive, silently weeping, of course. She craves visibility but demands privacy, seeks sympathy without scrutiny, and wants authenticity that's perfectly lit and directed. Her truth always trends, her pain is impeccably timed, and her vulnerability is strictly editorial. While the world argues whether those tears were real or just scripted air escaping, one thing's clear. Meghan Markle may not be acting, but her emotions sure are working overtime. At this point, her feelings deserve their own dressing room, a trailer, and maybe even an IMDb page, because honestly, they need their own agent. And Meghan, she's standing center stage waiting for applause, though what she's getting sounds a lot more like laughter and not the good kind.